Welcome to the Experience of the Soul podcast with Cynthia Alice Anderson, a weekly show helping you grow, prosper, and evolve. Today, episode 353, Intuition and Faith. And now, Experience of the Soul.
Hello and welcome to the Experience of the Soul podcast. My name is Cynthia Alice Anderson. I am the host. I'm here today with my very influential producer.
Wow, that's nice.
You're
Thank
an influencer.
And I didn't even know it. And you're an influencer too. Well, even more so, you know. I'm just working alongside of you. I'm a co-influencer.
Co-influencer. Well, we welcome all of you to the show, my friends. And Sean, thank you so much for being here as my producer. What a blessing. And people are really enjoying our work together, which makes me happy.
Yeah, me too. And I'm loving it. I love it. I love every minute of it and everything that we get to do. So yes, welcome everybody to episode 353 of the Experience of the Soul podcast. Today's episode is titled Intuition and Faith. We're very excited to get into that. Before we do, we just want to let you know that things are actively happening over there in the SoulWorks community. So if you'd like to join us, visit us at my.soulworkscommunity.com. In case you have not seen it yet, we have officially signed off of Facebook and Instagram. So we are now just going to be focusing all of our energy into the SoulWorks community. So please
and
do
YouTube as well.
And YouTube. So we'll still be very active on YouTube as well as in the community. So we invite you again to join us over there. You will hear more about the SoulWorks community at the completion of the episode, more details. So we would love for you to join us there. It is growing, and it is a great community. It's a great place to be for support on the journey. So
it is, Sean. And I want to mention too, I'm so grateful. A couple of donations, more than a couple. I think in one day I had 5 donations come in, and I thought it was so interesting. It was right in alignment with that decision. It happened at about the same time. And so when stuff like that happens, I really know that we have your love and support for that decision. And I want to explain it a little bit too, to say it's really following my guidance, my intuition, moving forward in faith, which is exactly what today is about. But we feel very strongly that we can focus our energy on people that really want to grow instead of dealing with unwanted sales calls, instead of dealing with resistance to our message. We want to just feed the people that want feeding. And if we're having to deal with all this extraneous stuff, we can't do that as well. So I feel so strongly and so good about the move from Facebook and Instagram and really moving just to YouTube and the network. And of course, the podcast, which goes out to everyone all over the world. So there's nothing limiting. It's more of focus is how I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I like to say it's a place free from ads and algorithms. So all you're going to see is what we're putting out there for you. And we have so many cool things planned. A couple of weeks ago, we did the first episode in our series of spiritual cinema, where we're going to discuss different spiritual themed movies. And what we're going to get to the point of doing, which I'm very excited about, is doing watch parties followed by discussions within the SoulWorks community. So these are things that we have planned for you. Of course, we have the Monday Night Talk series where we all come together, hear a beautiful message and get to share and discuss things then. We have other times when we're going live. So, and we're constantly posting things. Of course, we'll be sharing, tidbits from each week's podcast episode. I don't want people to, I know, people who might be not so tech savvy or not so comfortable with it. Right. I don't want you to be freaked out by it. If you're familiar with Facebook, the template, the format of it all kind of looks the same. We post things and you can engage, you can like it or love it or comment on it or, all of those same types of things. It's just, it's all you're going to see. You're not going to be fed ads. You're not going to be fed, things that you don't want to see.
Right. Honestly, I wish everybody did this so that I could just choose in to the things I wanted. So this is why it's so great. You're absolutely right, Sean. If you do Facebook or Instagram, just with a little bit of, focus on it, 5 to 10 minutes, you'll be able to figure it out. But you do have to spend a little time getting to know the platform because it's new. And if you need help, we're there to help you too. I've not ever turned down helping somebody, and
Same. Yeah.
everybody we've helped usually goes, oh, okay, now I get it. Like, don't, a friend of mine who's a IT guy, a computer guy, he would always say, don't be afraid to break it. Just start touching stuff and see what happens.
Right. Because you can't break it. Like, you're not going to break it.
Right. He said on a computer, if you touch it once, you can almost always undo it by touching it again. So try, and that was the best advice I ever got about working on a computer. I thought it was pretty funny, laughing at myself later that I was scared to touch a button.
Right. The beautiful thing about it is, so it is through a platform called the Mighty Networks. So the Mighty Networks is a place where you can join all of these other different communities. And so the SoulWorks community is a community within the Mighty Networks. It is a beautiful app that you can put onto your phone. And all you do is open the app, and then you're able to scroll. But when you're scrolling, all you're seeing is positive affirmations,
You're
meditations,
seeing prayer requests, affirmations.
I love how you said it's a place free from anger, which is in today's in the time that we're living in now, those social media platforms of Facebook and Meta and all that meta stuff, it's like all they want you to see is the anger and the divisiveness.
Yeah, they're pointing you towards it on purpose. I don't care what anyone says. That is what's happening, because I can tell you, I never click on that stuff, and I get it, and so I'm just done with that. Yeah.
But I think, so with that, I think that concludes all of our news. That we haven't really discussed that yet on the show. So I thought that might be a good way to start things out today.
Absolutely.
But let's go ahead and get into the meat of this episode. This is episode, again, 353, Intuition and Faith.
Yes. It's really funny, friends, that somehow the mention of that word intuition really downloaded in me a feeling and a knowing, and I'm super excited about the topic today. I've had so much on my mind, and I feel really honored to be able to bring you the show, and I want to thank you one more time for your support, because it enables me to do this. And largely, I have lived my life through intuition and faith. And so what is intuition? Well, intuition really is the soul connecting with God, working with the mind to bring that message up and out, in and through your life, bringing it into the present moment. In other words, it is knowing what to do from the level of the soul. And so it is beyond the mind, but also takes cooperation with the mind, right? Because it's not something you thought about and figured out from the mind, because often intuition will give us messages that we feel like are from nowhere. We say, where did this message come from? And we know it comes from God, and we know it comes from the center of who we are. And I also want to mention that many of us receive intuition in different ways. All right. So just with starting with that. So I want to pause for a moment and say, what is it? It is receiving messages. It is receiving messages from at the level of the soul that are brought in and through us through our connection with God. So in unity was the first time I'd ever heard it explained this well. In unity, we say that we are a threefold being. I'm still looking for a great diagram on this. I've drawn it out myself many times trying to come up with it. But we are spirit, soul, and body. And the spirit of us, that one aspect of us, is the aspect of God that never changes. God is this constant, right? It's this even line constant through our lives always. Our soul is our individual expression of God. It includes our memories, our thoughts, our feelings, our beliefs, our ideas. Our soul is basically interchangeable with the word consciousness. Everything we are in our thought, in our emotion, in our memory is a part of the soul. It is a part of our consciousness. And so as we quiet the mind, which is, of course, contained in the body, the soul and spirit of us can work together. Now, the reason I say it involves the mind is because the mind is how you choose The mind is what receives the information from the soul. So we don't, I used to have a friend that would say in Unity, you don't have to park your mind at the door and blindly believe. You can know and understand that spirit gives you messages at the level of the soul, and then it works with the mind in taking those next steps, because there's discernment involved. There is wisdom, of course, in the process. So this is a very deep idea, that we live life by listening and working with our intuition. Intuition, again, is receiving messages at the level of the soul, so we know what is ours to do out in the world. We are, in fact, spirit, soul, and body. That mind that we often talk about is contained in the body. You will often heard it called the ego self, the limited self, the mind. We really sometimes struggle to differentiate in terms of languaging the difference between the soul and the personality. And what works best for me is that word, the personality, because we know the personality is limited. The personality is what's created from how we were raised, how we chose to get a love and all of that. And so sometimes learning to operate from intuition can be a little bit of a stretch, because there's really nothing in our outer world right now that helps us do that. Back in the early 1900s, this was not a completely new idea. There was a lot of spiritualism. There was, Ralph Waldo Emerson, the father of transcendentalism. And some of the early teachers really taught us to approach life through the spiritual lens and through receiving information from God. And of course, it is in the scriptures under a slightly different name. But for instance, Psalm 91 calls it the secret place of the Most High. So when we are living in the personality, we are not entering the secret place of the Most High. That is where we get the information, the secret place of the Most High. And where is that? Is it a place I go to? Is it a church? Is it a temple? Is it a cathedral? Is it a synagogue? No. Secret place of the Most High is within me. The secret place of the Most High is within me. Sean, will you read that for us? It's Psalm 91, verse 1 and 2. And I don't know what translation you have there, but I'd be interested to know. Does it say New International or?
It is New International.
Okay,
yeah.
Good. Perfect. Let's hear that one.
So this is Psalm 91, verses 1 and 2. Whoever dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God, in whom I trust.
Yes, and there's probably a footnote on yours. I know there is on mine. That word Almighty is also translated to Shaddai. Remember that song, El Shaddai?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
El Shaddai, El Shaddai. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this idea is that we can literally find our peace, our place in God. And you see, it says, whoever dwells in the shelter of the Most High. And I love that. In other words, that is not a physical place. That is not a physical place. Clearly, it is not a physical place. And so, friends, as much as I love our places of worship, the worship, true worship, happens within. It is when we can recognize God within us. I was speaking to a friend recently. I was writing a story about her and about my history with her and how she so deeply taught me about gratitude. And, she shared a personal story with me about understanding gratitude for herself, because she said she almost heard God speak to her. It was almost audible. And as she, described this connection with God, I thought that is exactly what I'm talking about with the intuition. It's like being able to recognize and discern that voice of God and how it differs from the voice of the personality. as is many, and as is said in many New Thought circles, the ego. I'm really seeking to get away from that word, because in psychology, the ego is simply the self. And so if you have a psychological background, sometimes that can be a little frustrating, because you're saying, wait, what are you talking about? So I like to differentiate the personality and the ego. So intuition, getting those messages from God, and then acting on those messages is really a walk in faith. It is a walk in faith. And the title of today, I think, actually is Intuition and Faith, isn't it, Sean? I almost forgot that was the title of today.
Yep, it is.
Yeah. Yeah. So, friends, think about when I want to help you differentiate this voice, because as I've talked about it on the show so much, I've had people say, tell me more about when you say you're receiving guidance. Because sometimes I will say, I feel like God really guided me to do this. Like Sean, we were talking about earlier with coming off Facebook and Instagram, and the peace that came over me when that decision was complete, and you and I, discussed it and everything. And for me, that came out of the intuitive nature. And I know you were in alignment with it as well.
Yep, very much so. There was definitely a feeling of release and a feeling of letting go of all of I mean, because really it was a struggle. It was a struggle to constantly, we would, we're putting out these positive messages, and those things aren't grabbing the algorithm these days anymore. I mean, not even to our followers, like the people that are, actively following us. It wasn't, our messages weren't getting fed to those people because of the algorithm. There's definitely a sense of like a weight off of our shoulders that we can really put all of our time and energy and focus into making the SoulWorks community a place that is really just thriving and solely focused on spiritual growth and community and supporting
prayer.
Prayer. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that you said true worship happens within. That's something I just wrote down. I'm like, that's a really good just quote or something to keep in mind. True worship happens within.
It's so true. And again, that I take no credit for that. Spirit somehow gives me those things. I've never thought that before. I mean, I've never said that before, but that is my experience, right?
Yeah,
that is my experience. And so as we're talking about intuition, one of the ways you're right on track is what we're talking about, Sean, how we feel as we feel the result of that decision, and so it takes time to begin to discern those voices between a personality, and soul. And so that's just what we want to work on today. Thank you, Sean. Those great comments, great comments.
Absolutely.
And it's true. True worship happens from within. Yeah, happens within. True worship happens within. Yeah. So true. I was recently in Georgia, and I was able to visit with a family member. My oldest brother is very deep in his spiritual walk, and he has a different, slightly spiritual walk than me, but he loves Jesus, and that's really where we meet. He loves God, and we meet there and as well. And while I was there, he invited me and my son and his girlfriend to go to church with him. And I said, of course, we'd love to go. And my son had never been to a Baptist church. And I said, this will be a great experience. And this was really intuitively guided. And on the way there, we were reading something, and I had my son read to me out loud because I was driving and getting tired, and we were switching off driving. I said, well, why don't you read this thing to me while we drive? And it was something on the story about when Paul, when it was actually Saul, was on his way to persecute Christians, right? And he had that awakening on the road to Damascus. This is right out of the scriptures. And he did not know that story, which I was really surprised. But he did not know that story. And so, we talked about it and what it meant, and about, what it means to really awaken to God and all of this. Anyway, and then when we got to my brother's, of course, he asked my son and his girlfriend, what their favorite scriptures were, and they had some in mind. And, his whole life is his church and his world. Anyway, long story short, the reason I'm even telling you this is that evening before he went to bed, he gave us a stone from the Garden of Gethsemane, if you can believe that. And we started crying. It was so meaningful. And so I thought, this is, one of the reasons we were supposed to come and we were supposed to kind of share our faith together, is this was a gift he needed to give us, and it was a gift we needed to receive. And the next morning at church, we were in the Bible study. There was a 1-hour class that actually a kind of distant family member of mine was teaching. And it was about Saul to Paul, that conversion. And my son looked at me and I thought, this is why I go with my intuition. This is why, as much as possible, I do as I am guided. These divine synchronicities that happen to confirm that intuition or that intuitive path that you've set yourself on is amazing. So to follow, or to listen rather, to your intuition is to follow this path of faith. It is a walk of trust, because it is saying, I know the voice of my God. I know the voice of God. I'm going to listen to that voice of God, and I'm going to act, and I'm going to act upon this inner guidance, this inner knowing that I am receiving. And over and over and over, you are going to begin to see how accurate this intuitive voice is. And it does take some time. It takes some time to develop it. It takes some time to discern the difference between your ego and your soul. And then it takes some time to work up the courage and faith to act on it. If we were in a crowded room right now, I would say, if I said to everybody, how many of you have known what yours to do and not done it? And I bet you every hand would go up. And then if I said, how did you know what was yours to do? Some would say, well, I knew it intuitively. Others would say, it was a feeling. Others might say, it was a knowing. I just knew it was mine to do. I felt it in my gut, Others might say, I heard a voice. The voice was practically speaking to me, like my friend said very recently. She said it was almost audible. The voice was so clear what I was to do. To notice all the good around me. Yeah. So I want you to think about that. How does the voice of God speaking in and through your soul, what we call intuition, how does that happen for you? And this is important because this will help you discern what voice is speaking to you. There are a number of ways too. I want to help you with that. But I want to first make the point. You might feel you might know it. You might say, I just knew it in my gut. And I've known many people to say this. Many guys in particular that I've worked with have said, I just knew in my gut it was mine to do. I've had a lot of people, mostly women, but not only women, just said, I just had a feeling to go that direction. I've had other people say, a voice told me to do it. I heard audibly, I heard a voice. Yeah, audibly, I heard the voice. This is what I've heard people say. And I've kind of done various things myself. Some people even see visions. So the intuition, the intuitive guidance comes to each of us in a slightly different way. And it's no more or less accurate. It simply is God speaks in whatever way we can best hear it. And I think that's really, really important to acknowledge in oneself so that you can really honor who you are and, how you work on your spiritual life. Now, so we've already talked about what it is, what intuition is. Sean, will you put that up there as a banner one more time? The intuition There you go. Receiving message at the level of the soul through our connection with God. That's our intuition. Receiving messages at the level of the soul through our connection with God, and remembering we are spirit, soul, and body. 3 distinct but interrelated parts, right? And of course, contained in the body is the mind that works with the soul. All right. So we know what it is. We also know that we hear it in a lot of different ways. Some hear it audibly, some see visions, some feel it in their gut, some know it, and some say, I had a feeling. I want to mention one other way that I almost forgot. I was working with a client with this the other day, and a friend taught me this years ago. She will like lean into it. It's so funny. Physically, you kind of lean into an idea, and it's funny how one will feel right and the other one won't. I don't know if this is making any sense to you, but like if we were talking, this is years ago, she taught me this, and I was doing my first workshop, and she would say, well, why don't you just lean into that idea and see if that idea wants to go in this presentation? And I'd physically be standing there, and I'd kind of go, no, that's not it. And then I'd lean into another idea, and yep, that's it. Have you heard of that, Sean?
Yeah, well, I think that makes total sense. And I think to me, there's a level of surrender there. Like, yes. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just going to surrender, and I'm just going to do this because this was what feels right. And this is,
right.
It reminds me of also, I don't claim to be a songwriter, but I wrote one song. And when it happened, it was very much like that. It was very much like I was leaning into it. I was listening. I was just going in this direction. I was just writing it down, and I don't know where it was coming from. But it just all came out, and I know you've experienced that too. And I'm sure you experienced
absolutely.
that.
Well, I was going to tell you, we just did your song on Sunday.
Oh, they told me that it was going to be like a thing for the month. Like, that's so cool.
Your song is a thing.
I love that. That is awesome.
And again, what a great example of how it's from center. It has life. It has truth. It's not good for a moment. This is what things that are everlasting do. They last. they are everlasting.
Pardon me. Yeah.
But you're right, Sean.
Great.
That's it. There is a surrender piece to it. And that's a great example, because when you're writing, you don't know where it's going to go.
Yeah. And you just got to go with it and go with the flow and lean into it. Like you were saying, like, it's almost like a physical.
It is a physical leaning in. Is it this? Well, that was part of my decision with leaving Facebook and Instagram. Every time I would go to check it, I'm like, this just is not feeling right. Yeah. And then when I leaned in, literally, I was like, well, what would it be like to not be on Facebook and Instagram? I was like, gosh, could I really do that again? Because for a while I was not on there at all. And then everybody said, for marketing and everything. Right. And then,
right. And then, that's when I came into your into the business aspect.
Well, Sean, apparently, well, the other thing was somebody said, I really cannot find you. And I thought, okay, I'm ministering to people in Africa and everything else. I need to make a way for them to find me. Well, anybody can join the network from around the world. We've told people over and over and over now. So if somebody is not getting it by now, I've done my part. And it's
out there. Yeah.
If you search my name, you'll get a gazillion pictures and my website and everything else. So, I mean, Google never forgets, and so my stuff is out there. But my point is, in making that decision, how I felt leaning into not having it. And then when once I did that video, Sean, that we put out there, and it was funny, in the first day or first few hours, it got like 150 views.
Which I thought was ironic. I did not think that it was going to, because of the algorithm and how, because of what it's saying about Facebook and all that it would not get. But sure enough, yeah, I mean.
Right.
Yeah, it definitely got seen, which was great. I mean,
yes. And also so we're and what we're talking about next is kind of the next part of this is looking for signs, like Sean described, like I described, that lightness was a sign.
Yes.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Just
what
just the feeling that you got when you do lean into it, and if you lean into it and you feel like, oh my gosh, I can actually breathe, or I don't feel angry, I don't feel stressed, or I don't feel, all of the things that you'd feel when you'd come off those platforms. Mm-hmm. You know it has to be right. It's the right thing.
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
and as you're describing it, what I was just thinking is it's also you have to have a certain level of maturity in your mind and in your heart and in your journey to really begin to trust at the level, we're trusting, and that I know our listeners are trusting, because I can think of people, because it's already happened, people reaching out and going, well, I wish I could do that, but I just can't. But it's the belief that you can't that keeps everybody in it. Everybody could come off it if they wanted
Yeah.
to.
Yeah.
And then instead of just watching relationships, we'd actually be in them.
Yeah. There was I listened to a talk yesterday. I was singing at a different church, and the person giving the talk said something about, it was about finding happiness, finding true happiness. And,
Yes.
and at the end of the talk he said, go out and make some friends. And he said, and I don't mean Facebook friends. I mean real life, face to face.
Like, let's go have coffee, friends. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Let's get back to that. It's like a lost art. The lost art of getting together, is like,
oh yeah,
we all have these computers and phones, and we think that's the only way to and
connect.
That's,
yeah. And what I love about our network is it connects with people all over, the country. And that's why we do it, because I'd always much rather connect with people person to person, but I don't live in Phoenix anymore. And the good news is Phoenix people are able to connect through the network. So it's what's so interesting,
Yeah, and friends, and I know we're saying these things, but within the network, it is FaceTime. Like, we're seeing each other when we get together for these Monday night talks. We all see each other. We're all on the call. We can see each other. It is, even though it's over the computer, there's still the face-to-face element.
It's real connection.
It's real connection. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Well, and so, friends, I want to end this by giving the most important aspects that I haven't done yet. I got so excited talking about that with John again. That so differentiating that ego, or rather personality and soul, is super important. And if you're new to it, I want to give you a couple ways just to think about it and to help you embody this deeper work with your intuition. First of all, I want to honor you and say, I'm sure you're already doing some work with the intuition. I just want to call you to do more, because that's what I'm always doing with myself, going, well, did I march forward here and not, check in with my divine guidance on this? But one way to differentiate personality and soul is the personality is always making lists, and it's almost, in my mind, it's almost an arguing voice. It wants to talk about pros and cons and this and that, and what do they think and what do I think? And okay, too many I's in there. That's how you know it's personality. Is there's a lot of inner arguing and list making. And soul knows. In the Bible, it says, God's not in the earthquake, God's not in the fire, but a still small voice. And that's how I experience it. It is this word, it is this guidance. Sometimes it comes as a feeling, sometimes as a knowing. And it is unmistakable. It is right from center. It's quiet, it's peaceful. And I only hear it when I can stop the chatter of the mind. So if the chatter of the mind is going, I know that is not my soul guidance. Here's another way to know. Is it good for me and the people around me? Is it good for me? Because just being good for me can get you into ego stuff. I didn't say, do I like it? So being good for me nearly always means coming out of my comfort zone to try something new, to extend myself in a way I hadn't thought I should, there's I hadn't been ready to do. So, is it good for me? Is it good for the people around me? Is another great distinction, because ego voices, or rather personality voices, are very limited in scope. It's what I want here and now. So the intuitive messages are usually moving you past your comfort zone. They're usually causing you to do a new behavior, and the personality is almost always keeping you safe. So, these are just a few ways to check it out. And then, as Sean and I were saying, your emotive nature, your feeling nature is also going to be giving you messages. After you make a decision and you start to move forward, maybe you wait, maybe you go forward. This is how the intuition and the mind work together, because not everything happens instantly. You have to sometimes strategize when to make certain steps, even though you know it's yours to do. Not everything changes in an instant. For instance, I was really guided to, work on this book of stories. I started over 3 years ago, and I worked on it for a while, wrote a few stories, maybe 10 stories, put it down. Worked on a few more, 2 or 3 more stories, put it down for nearly a year. Well, now I'm up to 70,000 words, and 300 pages later, I know by what's happening, I know by the activity, I know by how I feel when I do it, I know by how I feel after I do it, that this activity is an activity I am supposed to be about. And it came out of listening to that inner voice of, begin to write these things down. And what's formed over the last few years around this writing, I never would have imagined. I was doing it for my own enjoyment. I was doing it to heal. I was doing it simply because I was guided to begin to write these stories down. I thought it would be fun for my son to read as he aged. And, now it's taken on a life of its own. And the intuition was to simply start writing. So I didn't have an entire book overnight. It's not possible to do that. So that's how the intuition works with the mind to help move you forward. So, friends, what I want you to remember is that everything I say presupposes the idea that God's will for you is good. And so when you begin to trust enough to listen to the voice of the intuition, to trust enough to then follow that through and tap into that faith of believing that you're guided, of trusting yourself and trusting God that much, then you're going to begin to see in your life even more how God is bringing you good, but it happens in and through you, not to you, but in and through you as you trust and do as God guides. So my hope for you is, like it says in Psalm 91, that you will dwell in the shelter of the Most High, that you will go into what some translations call the secret place of the Most High, and that you will meet God there, remembering that this true worship happens within you, not in any outer place, but within. Okay? So, my dear friends, thank you for joining me today. I'm wishing you the best as you trust God even deeper. You move into deeper intuition and faith, and know how honored I feel to support your journey in whatever way I can, whether it's listening to the show or you joining the network. I feel honored to support you and blessed that you're a part of the podcast family and Experience of the Soul. So blessings on the journey, my dear friends. I look forward to seeing you next week.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Experience of the Soul podcast with Cynthia Alice Anderson, helping you grow, prosper, and evolve. This podcast is made possible because of listeners and viewers just like you. If you would like to support the podcast with your tax-deductible contribution on an ongoing basis or through a one-time gift, head on over to experienceofthesoul.com/support. The Experience of the Soul podcast is copyright 2025 Cynthia Alice Anderson, all rights reserved, and is produced by Sean Kilgore. A production of the SoulWorks Group, Incorporated. Hey friends, Sean here, your Experience of the Soul producer. I want to take a moment to tell you about something truly exciting. The SoulWorks online community, created by your host, Cynthia Alice Anderson, and available on the Mighty Networks app. If you're looking for a place where you can explore your spiritual path, connect with others, and grow in a meaningful way, then this is for you. SoulWorks is so much more than an online community. It's a safe, inclusive space for spiritual exploration, self-discovery, and personal transformation. Inside the community, you'll find everything from uplifting spiritual studies to soul-centered growth practices
meditations, affirmations, and so much more. It's a space where you'll always be supported and never judged. The best part, membership is free. You'll have access to powerful resources, inspiring content, and a supportive group of like-minded people who are all on their own unique spiritual journeys. And if you're ready to dive deeper, there are premium options available to enhance your experience with a live Monday night talk series and extended, deeper meditations. If you're seeking a place to connect, grow, and nurture your soul, we would love to have you join us in the SoulWorks community and see where this journey can take you. Visit my.soulworkscommunity.com today.